I'm here with Haley Joel Osment. You'd be surprised how many people get your last name mixed up. Osmond, they think you're part of the Osmond family, and
it's an unusual surname. I haven't found anybody I wasn't related to who had it. So,
do you think it might be something like? Do you know who John Cleese is from Monty Python and all that?
Yeah.
The history of his name is his father changed it after the war. His real last name is Cheese.
Really?
Yeah, I'm serious.
I didn't know
and he
that.
didn't like the name, so he changed it to Cleese. So when John was doing some of that family archive stuff and he was trying to find anybody else with that last name, it didn't exist.
It sounds like a real name, too. That's a really good invented name, Cleese.
Yeah. Do you think somebody in your family may have changed the name at some point?
The little that I don't think I've done. An uncle of mine did some research on our family history, and we're very, very Irish. There's a lot of Mulvaneys and things like that. But Osmond appears to be an English name, so the wild guess is that perhaps some English soldier or somebody garrisoned over there, passed on the name. But it's hard to know. Nobody's dived into Ancestry.com with the appropriate rigor yet.
Well, they still do that show on NBC. Maybe that's something you should reach out about.
The only clue that I've gotten recently is that Rob McElhaney and I kind of look similar to each other, and apparently I look even more like his brother. So when I did this thing on Always Sunny, I was like, would it be creepy to go plug us into Ancestry.com? Probably. So I didn't do it.
Don't want to do the old DNA test, scraping the cheek and
Rob,
nail it
can
out.
I get a swab from you by the end of the day? Yeah.
So you're here promoting Tusk, which is I went and said it's an unusual movie. I like the whole story building up to the actual release of the movie. Maybe most people don't know at this point, but I'm sure a lot of people do. It started with Kevin's podcast where they were discussing it, and then it just went on from there. When was the first time that you heard about Tusk?
I mean, my route into the movie was I just got an email and a voicemail from my agent manager late one night, and they were laughing. They're going, "Oh, man, we have a movie for you." And I didn't know the whole walrus backstory, and I knew Kevin's podcast, but I hadn't heard that episode. So I went into the script kind of cold, and the chronology of the film has been changed up a little bit in the final cut, but in the original screenplay, you had 50 pages of character development. You got to know Justin and me as these podcasters, and then Genesis is his girlfriend, and got the love triangle, and then Michael Parks tells all these stories. And by the time you get to the guy chopping up people and making them into walruses, you've sort of bought the reality of the movie, at least in my experience. So that's how I got in.
So when your agent pitched this movie to you, were you already being considered by Kevin's camp? Because
it came from Kevin.
It did come from Kevin.
Yeah, I think he had an idea for me a long time ago that hadn't panned out, and so he came back.
It's the weird and great thing with Kevin's movie choices and his casting is that there's always some kind of friendly tie to the people that he casts in there. Very rarely does he get somebody that he doesn't have some kind of connection with or wanted to work with in the past or has worked in the past with.
Yeah.
With the exception of Johnny Depp, which was a great story because his daughter was in the movie.
Yeah, and then he's like, I knew I had one chance to ask him to do something, and he wanted it. He said he waited 10 years to find the right thing to ask him to do, and it was kind of cool. It was this.
So you get approached for the movie, you're pitched the idea, they send you the script. What are you thinking as soon as you start reading this?
Well, actually, there wasn't really a pitch or anything. I just got the script and an email that had all those names saying these, because I was one of the last people to get attached. And so I basically was on greased rails going towards it already, going, oh, man, Johnny Depp, Michael Parks, Justin, Genesis, and, always Kevin. So I was reading the scripts going I'm going to do it. I hope it's good. And it ended up being something that I also liked.
Did you go back and listen to the podcast to see where this started?
Yeah, absolutely did. And it's really funny to listen to these guys, really stoned and not knowing that they're walking into this movie that's turned into a big thing for everybody.
Now, you play Teddy Kraft, who is co-host on a podcast.
Yes.
Which is pretty much Kevin and Scott for the guys that you're doing, except it takes a really creepy turn. And you happen to be sleeping with Justin Long's girlfriend in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is kudos to you.
Thank you.
That's a great pick. Have you done any of this kind of this podcasting stuff or tried radio before?
As a guest, Kevin is a big evangelist for that. And he's like, you should get a podcast. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but it's a full-time job. I mean, he travels all around the world doing it, and I've been on Adam Carolla and Greg Fitzsimmons and a bunch of the great podcasts and everything, and it's a cool full-time job. So maybe if I find something I feel like I can contribute to the podcast sphere with, I'll get into it.
How long were you shooting this movie?
15 days. Yeah.
Your whole part was just 15 days?
The whole movie was 15 days.
The whole movie was 15 days? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
shot in
very
North
quick.
Carolina?
Belmont, North Carolina,
Right.
That's correct, yeah. And then well, we had 2 additional days with Johnny, but that was like 6 months after principal photography. So, yeah.
The way he wrote this ties into the next movie that he's producing, Yoga Hosers, and may even tie into the 3rd movie that he's doing, Moose Jaws.
Yes.
So we know Justin Long is in the 2nd movie. Are you part of these movies as well?
Yeah, everybody from Tusk, Michael, Johnny, everybody is back, which is kind of cool. We are not Johnny. Well, I don't want to say too much, but Justin and Genesis and I are not playing the same characters. As the internet figured out really quickly, I'm a Nazi in the 1930s in Quebec, and that's my storyline. So
you're a flashback?
Yeah. I'm I'm on a completely different storyline, and it's cool because it's Yoga Hosers branches off from Tusk. We meet these 2 clerks who are Johnny's daughter and Kevin's daughter, and then he wrote a whole movie about what's happening with them while Tusk is happening in that same compass.
How's this tour been so far? Tusk is out right now, and you've been doing a lot of promotion for this. All of you have been doing a lot of promotion for this. How has this tour been going so far?
I love promoting this movie, and especially because most of the time we've all been together. So in Toronto, me and Genesis and Justin were all doing press together, and at Comic-Con we were doing press with Kevin, and we all genuinely enjoy each other's company. So it's nice to be around on a movie like that. In some movies, you can be out on a junket just by yourself for like a week and doing stuff, and you kind of like get lost in the woods and everything. So when you're actually around the people who you made the project with, it makes it a lot better. And also A24 has been a terrific partner in this. So
I want to talk about some of your previous work for a moment here, because I read something and I found it kind of aggravating, and I know it has to be infuriating on your part here. When I read some reviews about Tusk and predictions about how Tusk will do, and they said it's great to see that you've come back. And I'm like, I looked at your history. I'm like, the guy never stopped working. You're always doing something, but everybody is so short-sighted nowadays where they still think you're just the kid from The Sixth Sense and only quote that line, but you've got an extensive body of work.
Well, thank you for saying that. But yeah, I mean, it's I can understand that perception because it's different doing, like a play in New York or some independent films, and the things that the audience that saw The Sixth Sense wouldn't necessarily also see. So I can understand that perception from people. But yeah, I've been really lucky, and my whole thing has always just been choosing work that's been interesting for me. So, going to study experimental theater at NYU, and then doing some of these independent films, and then after a while you start walking into things like this, and then Entourage, which is such an I just love that in the same year I made this movie and the Entourage movie, which are so different in so many ways, and it's just that's really a great thing for an actor. You get to have that wide diverse experience.
Well, I know people would say, "Oh, he's the kid from The Sixth Sense," and I know that's got it. It's nice, but it's a great piece of work. But you've done so much since then. You kind of like move past that. I knew you as the kid from Forrest Gump.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
It predated that. But you do some work that I find very fascinating and a bit envious. You do a lot of voiceover work. You've done a lot of Disney sequels.
Yeah.
And you're even in the Kingdom Hearts video game.
That has been the longest project of my career. I started recording Kingdom Hearts stuff in 2001. And did more this year, for the expanding series and everything. So yeah, I love doing voiceover work. I also love doing radio. Yes, sitting behind a microphone like this is a comfortable place for me. And when we do Kingdom Hearts and things like that, just learning how to do a character with only your voice, or like changing your age, or that sort of thing is really good training for an actor.
Doing all this stuff, doing the voiceover work and the video game work, I can't imagine the process is much different, because maybe with the animation, you go through a run first, but then sometimes they have clips that they can show you so you can feel out how you're supposed to project for certain scenes. Are you doing the same thing with a video game? Are they showing you clips of here's a fight scene, here's a cut scene, you got to say it this way, look how it's going to appear on the camera?
It's even odder for the video game because Kingdom Hearts starts off, it's produced in Japan and everything, and the English-speaking actors dub in our voices for the English version after they've completed the Japanese version. So there's this really odd skill that I have developed really intensely over 10 years that's only good for this one thing, where they write a script where it's the same length and has the approximate number of like lip flaps and everything. You have to put an English line over a mouth that's speaking Japanese, in that digital world and everything. So learning how to stretch words and sort of predict how long the person's going to be talking is this thing that I've developed on Kingdom Hearts. I wish I could use it elsewhere, but it's pretty much just for that.
Is this? You said you're still doing this. Is this something that if you didn't get any other acting work, would you be content with doing the voiceover stuff, or do you need to go out there and do the acting and portraying as well?
I think I'd put it in the same world as, why I like to throw theater in and to change it up from time to time, is that they all reinforce each other. So the way that you develop your voice and your sense of timing and characterization in voiceover is something that I want to take into things where they can actually see you. So I certainly love doing it, but I don't think I'd be content doing any one of these things by themselves, I think.
Besides Tusk, which is out now in theaters, and Yoga Hosers and Moose Jaws, I think you said you might be in. What are you working on right now that we can expect?
I just finished season 2 of Alpha House. That's on Amazon Prime. We're going to premiere towards the end of the year, probably November. I have a film called Sex Ed that we actually won Best Narrative Feature at the Portland Film Festival in August. That has an amazing cast. It's Matt Walsh from Veep, Retta from Parks and Recreation, Glenn Powell, Lorenza Izzo, Abby Elliott, a really fun coming-of-age comedy. That comes out November 9th. And then going into 2015, I have a project I can't really announce yet. I should be getting to work on next month. And then Entourage will come out in early 2015, and I'm sure that'll take up my time for a while.
Some of your other works that you've had, one which is very well known, Pay It Forward. You got to work with Kevin Spacey, which is a legend in this business. Mm-hmm. Have you watching House of Cards, by the way?
Oh yeah, I watched it in a day. Yeah,
Is
season one I did over a weekend, and then this year me and my girlfriend were like, let's do it in a day. Like it kind of doesn't make sense because you sort of start to trip out by the 7th or 8th hour because you're completely living in that world. It was a sunny day, and we drew the blinds and everything, but we did it all in one.
The binge watch.
Did it all on that Sunday, so yeah.
It's so creepy seeing him like that now, right?
He's so great, and this character has so many of the things that he is, legendary for, making this twisted person likable and relatable, and I don't think many actors could pull off the Shakespearean asides that he does so well. I mean, that's just, Kevin at his best.
And another movie that you did where I don't think it got its due, but I really enjoyed was Secondhand Lions.
Oh, thank you.
And you're working with two of the, if you could throw out some of the biggest names ever in the history of acting in Hollywood, Robert Duvall and Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And then there's you.
That was definitely a movie where you just pull up a director's chair next to those guys and just absorb whatever they're going to talk about, and they both had amazing stories. I mean, stories for the industry, obviously, but for Michael Caine, I mean, stories about fighting in the Korean War and then growing up in England back in the day. Just true storytellers, as good as they were in the film.
How old were you when you did that movie?
I was 14.
14.
Yeah.
So you did that at 14. Younger for Pay It Forward. Younger for Sixth Sense. Younger for Forrest Gump. Mm-hmm. Tom Hanks, just look at the roster that you've appeared with. Did you understand the impact of who you were working with?
Yeah, I mean, and with all those guys, there was like a movie or two that I had seen, even if I was really young. Like even on Forrest Gump, I think I'd seen like Big or something. So you appreciated you were working with someone who, was at this high level. One thing that I think you can't really absorb as a kid is like where the movie's gonna go, and then it's gonna be seen by all these people and everything. And I guess that was kind of good because you do a performance that isn't distracted by that stuff, and kids can be good at being natural in that environment. But one thing, because you're doing something that there's really nothing to compare to at that age, or you're going to a different. It's first time I've been out of like California. You're going to a different state. You're shooting a big movie and everything. And one thing that really stands out is that all of those guys, and they all had it in common, was how focused they were and how hard they were working on this thing. So even at a young age, I remember picking that up about Hanks, who would just always be absorbed in his script, and Kevin, who's a lot of fun on set, but just completely, consumed with the character and everything. So it's a cool thing to be around and a really good influence.
You mentioned Big. While on the set of Forrest Gump, did you ever talk to Tom Hanks and see if you could do the keyboard scene?
We played ping pong. That was our on set thing. There was a ping pong table on the porch of the Gump house, and so that was the thing. I don't think I could really play at that age, and I think to give away some of the movie magic in the montage where we're playing, I'm just kind of standing there with a paddle and a grip is throwing the ping pong ball on the table for me, I think, to make it look like that I could actually, but was coordinated enough to play ping pong at 4. But yeah.
Let's jump back to Tusk here, which is out in theaters now. Do you have any cool behind the scenes stories, like something fun that was going on? Like what were you doing while you weren't shooting? What were you doing to pass the time and hang out?
It was such a short shoot that really most everything was you see on camera most of the time that I spent on this movie. One really cool thing that happened though is that our set photographer Kent Smith works for the NFL as a photographer, and I think for the Panthers specifically. So one night we finished shooting and I raced to Charlotte, about an hour away, and put on a green NFL photographer's thing and was running around on the field shooting Patriots Carolina Monday Night Football, which is, I'm a huge NFL fan. That was like one of the coolest things that had happened to me. So my dad was watching television and everything going, oh yeah, I can see on the sideline Gronk's head like smashed to the ground next to me. But yeah, we shot in an abandoned country club, this musty old place that was kind of like The Shining, and we added our walrus tank and this really scary room and everything. So yeah, it's in 15 days most of what we did there is all on screen.
Did you get a chance to explore the town while you were there?
Really, I think what Kevin said, that there's a lot of nice people and nothing else there. So yeah, I mean there was houses and stuff, but
were you drawing any crowds from the locals while you were there?
No,
nobody standing around watching.
I don't think people. It was a place where people kind of kept to themselves, these neighborhoods. And it was the old abandoned country club that people weren't really hanging out in and everything. So no, we were kind of anonymous while we were there.
What can you tell me without giving away, I guess, any plot points as far as Tusk goes? What was some of your favorite things to do in this movie?
It's not giving away too much, but there's, I gave Justin some grief about this because Justin's the star of the movie. But he had to be tortured the whole time, and me and Genesis got to run around with guns and Johnny Depp. So I was like, I kind of liked our part in the movie.
Let me ask you this then: if you worked, say, The Tonight Show or David Letterman and stuff like that, when Dave's not there and the sets strike, some people go down from the cast and the crew and they sit behind the desk, they take a photo.
Yeah.
Did people take turns wearing the walrus suit?
Nobody wanted to get in that.
Nobody?
No, it's a credit to how great Justin is and the performance that he gives, because that thing was so uncomfortable looking. I didn't get it.
Was it just made and he had to fit into it, or did they tailor it around his size?
There's stuff that he'd put on the head, and then he was, the little like orange blob with the handle that kids bounce around on, like the hippity hop. So
right.
like Justin was like crouched over one of those so he could flop like a walrus, and then they put this hot suit around him and everything. So yeah, not a great place to be.
Nobody wanted to wear the suit?
No.
If I was in that movie, I'd be like, are we done shooting? Can I get a photo in the suit? That would have been my Christmas card.
Yeah, no, it was creepy. It's made from, the skins of, well, I guess that's giving away too much, but yeah, it's a creepy looking thing.
Did you take anything from the set as a souvenir to keep for yourself?
God, I don't know. We didn't really have props like that, you know, like the wheelchairs and all that stuff, all stuff that stayed in North Carolina when we left. Took warm feelings and memories home.
Well, Tusk is out in theaters now. Haley Joel Osment,
yes,
as everyone tends to mispronounce. Go see the movie. I saw the movie. It's funny, it's creepy, and then there's just parts where it's just absurd. Like, why is this part in the movie? And then it jumps to, oh, okay, now I see why it's in the movie. No, I still don't know why that's in the movie.
Yeah.
I think this will be the next big, if it's not a box office hit, it'll be the next big cult thing, because online, the whole Walrus Yes hashtag is everywhere.
How much that's
I saw some footage of Kevin up in Toronto for the film festival, and they're all wearing walrus masks and hats, and it's just insane.
Yeah.
So this movie should do very well.
It's been amazing. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Nice talking to you, man. Take care.
Come on now, more margaritas.